The next speaker is Colby Swandale. Mr. Colby Swandale. The title is Bundler 2.
皆様、こんにちは。ありがとうございます。Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for coming to my talk. I wanted to share some progress that the Bundler core team has been making to Bundler over the past year, and also talk about the future of Bundler with the newest release, Bundler 2. My name is Colby. I am from Melbourne in Australia. I'm currently serving on the Bundler core team. I'm also the newest member. I joined earlier this year. I work at a company in Melbourne called Marketplacer. We're a tailor-made e-commerce platform for businesses, and I would not be here today without their support, so I thank them very much for letting me be here today. Before I dive into Bundler 2, I want to highlight some new features that have been made in Bundler over the past 12 months, both from the core team and from contributors. So Bundler Doctor is a new command that helps diagnose problems with gem extensions. We have plans to extend this further. Currently there is a PR in progress where Bundler Doctor will check the file permissions of your installed gems and report any possible problems. A new command as well called Bundle Add, which allows you to insert a gem into your gem file without needing to edit the gem file itself. As an example, I have a gem file here with just rack. And then with Bundle Add, I can insert a gem such as RSpec into my gem file, and then Bundle will install RSpec for me. And then Bundle will also just append the given gem to my gem file like so. And then Bundle Add also allows specifying options such as the version constraint, the source, and the group as well. So another major feature that has been made into Bundler lately is Bundler plugins. So Bundler plugins allow you to extend the behavior of Bundler yourself without having to make a change into the source code of Bundler. There are two types of plugins. One is called command plugins. The other are called hook plugins. Command plugins allow you to add your own commands into Bundler. And hook plugins allow you to hook into Bundler events, such as when you're installing gems. So here's a quick example of a command plugin. So a plugin is just like a regular gem, except that it has a special file called a plugins.rb file. And this is where you define your Bundler command that you want to add. So in this example, we've created a new class which inherits from the Bundler API, the Bundler plugin API, declares a new command and implements the command action with the exec method. And in this example, we're just printing hello world. And then you can run the command from Bundler like so. Hook plugins allow you to set up ways to hook into the Bundler lifecycle, such as when you're installing, when the user is installing gems, when the user is doing other particular actions as well. For hook plugin, we can create a new hook using the Bundler plugin API again. And in this example, we're hooking into the before install all hook. And then we're defining just some behavior like so. And then in Bundler, when we install the plugin, our plugin will just hook into that event and then print our output like so. And then Bundler plugins can be installed through the plugin command like so as well. And lastly, plugins can be specified in the gem file with the plugin method. So Bundler plugins are a relatively new feature, and there's plenty of work that still needs to be done with them. If you're looking for a starting point on contributing to the Bundler project, I recommend here. There's plenty of new sets of behavior that needs to be added to support plugins. There's documentation that needs to be worked on. There's lots of things. If you like to contribute to Bundler, especially with Bundler plugins, you're more than welcome to come see me after the talk. We've also been fixing a lot of things in Bundler, such as file permissions, installation, and resolver issues. And we've also been working on improving a lot of the error messages in Bundler. We're adding more errors that provide more context to the user about what went wrong. We're also making a lot of the errors more friendlier, so they can be understood more easily and more easily translated if need be. And lastly, thanks to the work from both the core team and from contributors, some of whom are in the room right now, Bundler is beginning a lot of optimizations, especially in the resolver, which means faster resolve times and faster install times for everyone. We still have a lot of ideas on how we can improve a lot of the resolver time and a lot of the installation time issues. So Bundler is definitely not done making things faster for everyone in the room. So in the near future, Bundler core team will be releasing the next release of Bundler 1.16. This will likely be the very last feature release for Bundler 1, sorry. And I recommend upgrading to it before we switch over to Bundler 2. So Bundler 1.0 was released all the way back in August 2010, and during that time, the Bundler core team has learned a lot. We've gradually improved the user experience by introducing new features. We've also been refining existing functionality. But decisions made all the way back then are no longer relevant now, and technical debt has slowly been creeping into the code base as well. And so with the next major release of Bundler, we're introducing a lot of changes to fix these issues that we haven't been able to due to backwards compatibility. So let's have a look at Bundler 2. So I'm just going to go through the list of things we're removing, adding, and changing in Bundler 2, and help provide a bit of context as well as to why we're making certain decisions. So the things we're removing in Bundler 2, there's going to be a lot of them. As I said, Bundler 2 is mostly going to be fixing things that we haven't been able to fix and removing a lot of things we haven't been able to remove because of backwards compatibility. So one of the major things we're removing is Ruby support. So at the moment, Bundler 1 supports 1.8.7. And with Bundler 2, we're dropping all the Ruby versions that are no longer maintained by the Ruby core team. So we're dropping support of all the major versions of Ruby up until 2.3. Another thing we're removing from Bundler is the Capistrano and the Vlad integrations. These just no longer need to be built into Bundler anymore, and there are libraries available to give you that functionality already. So we're just going to remove that from Bundler source code. Gem file shortcuts, for those who don't know, they're pretty much an easy way to specify the source of a particular gem. We have a few of them in the gem file, things like Bitbucket, Gemcutter, GitHub, RubyForge, RubyGems. A few of these services no longer, in fact, even exist anymore. They just, at the moment, they just route to rubygems.org. In Bundler 2, we're going to be removing these shortcuts. Instead, we're just going to rely on the existing, the source, the Git, and the path source helpers. But if you've recently generated a new Rails app or a Bundler gem file, you may have probably seen this snippet at the very top of your gem file. This is a workaround in Bundler 1 to pull dependencies from GitHub using HTTPS. At the moment in Bundler 1, if you use the GitHub helper, it will pull from GitHub using plain HTTP. So if you're using that little snippet, you can continue using the GitHub helper in Bundler 2 because that snippet will actually override the default behavior that's in Bundler. So if you use that little snippet at the top, which I assume most of you should be now, you can continue using the GitHub helper. But all the other services, unless you've overwritten it yourself, will be removed. Lastly, in Bundler, you can also specify a set of gems to come from GitHub like so. This has just been removed. That's not going to be replaced or anything. Instead, in this case, just use the source block. So bundle show is a really confusing command which does three things currently in Bundler 1. For example, using bundle show without any arguments will list all the gems in your gem file with their version. And then if you give it a gem name, it will print the path. And then if you specify --verbos without any arguments, it will list all the gems again with more information. This is really super confusing to a lot of people, so we're going to be dropping bundle show, and we're going to be replacing it with bundle info and bundle list. So bundle list will just list your gems. It won't do anything else. It will print the same information that's currently in bundle show. And then bundle info will handle giving you information about a gem. And so it will give you the summary, the homepage, and the path. And then bundle info also takes a path option, which will give you the path to that gem if you so desire again. Bundle viz is a command that no longer needs to be in bundler anymore. For anyone that doesn't know what bundle viz does, it's basically this graphing tool in bundler to graph all your dependencies in the gem file, and you can save it to a file. We are removing it from bundle the source code, but we're going to be putting it into its own gem. We're going to be using the bundler plugin API, and we're going to put it into its own gem that you can install with the bundler plugin. So if you're still using that functionality, it's still going to be around when bundler 2 comes around. It'll just be in its own gem though now. We haven't made this gem yet, so doing this right now won't work. But once we do release bundle 2, that will work. Console is another command that no longer just needs to be in source anymore. There isn't a replacement planned, but for those curious, what it does, it basically starts an IRB session with all your gems in the gem file loaded in for you. If you really want to keep this around for whichever purpose, this could very easily be turned into a bundler plugin again. Bundler core team has no plans to move it there themselves, but if anyone wishes and wants some help doing so, we're more than happy to point you in the right direction. And currently in bundle 1, when you specify bundle install with options, bundler will actually save those options for you in the bundler config system. In bundler 2, we're going to be dropping that. We're going to drop that whole persistent thing just by running bundle install. Instead, you will just specify the same arguments again, or you just specify those arguments in bundle config. So it will no longer remember it for you. You have to do it yourself. And it also reduces a lot of surprise that people have with bundler when they're coming to it for the first time. We're pretty happy with this change because, yeah, it's caused us some problems with people trying to understand how bundler works. So yeah, here's an example, sorry. So I'm specifying the path, and then that is persistent into the bundle config. So in bundler 2, that will no longer be remembered. Now, speaking of bundle install, we're going to be dropping some of the options that are in there currently. Specifically, we're going to be dropping the with, the without, the path, and the system options. These will instead be configured through the config system. So we're just dropping it from the CLI, but it will work the same way in bundler 2. You just have to set it through the config system instead. The reason because of that is because we found that most of the most use cases where people will actually use those options is either in production or CI. So with bundler no longer remembering config options in bundler 2, we felt comfortable removing that from the CLI and instead have you explicitly set those options in the config. So bundler package and bundler cache. So we're going to be removing the implementation of bundler cache that's in bundler 1 right now. Instead, and we're going to move bundler package into bundler cache there in bundler 2. Both commands are pretty much the same thing, except bundler package is a more improved implementation of what bundler cache does. For those who don't know what bundler cache does, it's pretty much a way of exporting your gems into a folder that you can then package up with your application and ship into production. There's a few issues with bundler cache, like for example, it doesn't support Git gems. but bundler package is a more improved version that does support Git gems and a few other things as well. Bundler cache will remain in bundler 2. We're removing bundle package in bundler 2, but bundle package will now become bundler cache. So for the things we're adding, there's not going to be too much. Again, bundler 2 is mostly fixing a lot of the existing issues that bundler has. But we do have a few things we're adding in that we haven't been able to add. First is the global gem and extension cache. So an issue with bundler at the moment, and partly with Ruby gems, is that if you have two different applications, so if you have two different versions of Ruby being used by the same application, so if you have an app that's in Ruby 2.3.0, for example, you do bundle install, and then you move your application to bundler to Ruby 2.4.0, you have to reinstall all your gems and recompile all your gem extensions again. So in bundler 2, we're introducing the global gem and extension case, which is where you basically don't have to re-download your gems or recompile your extensions when you switch Ruby versions. You don't have to re-download gems, and you don't have to recompile extensions. The other thing we're adding in bundler is the specific platforms feature. So this is where bundler will start considering the platform of your machine during the bundler resolve process. Now you may have a question. You may have the immediate question of what's a platform. So a platform is basically part of Ruby gems, and it specifies what operating system, OS version, CPU architecture, Ruby engine, and Ruby version our gem is able to be used on. Most gems by default will use what's called the Ruby platform, which is basically saying that it can run on any platform that implements Ruby. So it doesn't matter what it is, it can run as long as you have Ruby. And that's pretty much when your gem is just written in Ruby only. But if you have an extension, it's recommended that you set the platform value in the gem spec to the platform extension. To the platform the extension is being built on and released on. So as an example, here is the libv8 gem. And you can see that the gem authors have published different platforms for the same version. Platforms such as FreeBSD 11, FreeBSD 10, Universal macOS, x64 macOS, 64-bit Linux, and even ARM Linux. So in bundler 1, when you run bundle install with gems that contain extensions, bundler will just try to resolve those gems using the generic platforms such as Ruby and Java. But there's a problem there where we may need a version of a gem that is specific to our platform, such as Linux or Windows. And unless you declare that in your gem file, bundler's not going to know about it. So in bundler 2, bundler will add the platform that you're running bundle install on to your gem file, and start considering gems that match the platform into the dependency resolver process. And so in this example, we have resolved both libv8 for the generic Ruby platform, but also resolved the platform specific for the libv8 gem for the 64-bit Linux platform as well. And then when we load bundler inside our application, bundler will also load the dependency in the gem file that best matches that platform for you. So you can see here that way I've set up bundler. And then the specification for the libv8 gem that has been loaded by bundler is the one that is specific to our platform, which in this case is 64-bit Linux, not the more generic version of the libv8. So for things we're changing in bundler 2, we're going to be changing the default command when you run bundler without any arguments. At the moment in bundler 1, it is an alias of bundle install. But for bundler 2, we're going to be moving that into the help. So when you just do bundle in bundler 2, it will just print the list of available commands. And I think this will also include the bundler plugin command as well when you do this. We're also making a few UI changes to bundle updates. Currently in bundler, if you run updates without any arguments, bundler will just update all your gems for you. Rarely is this something you actually want to do, and we don't really encourage it for a variety of reasons. So instead, if you just do bundle update, bundler's going to complain to you. But if you do really want to update all your gems, you can just specify the --all flag. So the videos from this, so that's pretty much it for bundler 2. The videos for RubyKaigi probably won't be published for a few weeks, I imagine, but I have set up an RFC that specifies pretty much all these changes that I've talked about and lists them. If you're interested to share this information around or to revise it later on, you can find it up on GitHub at bundler RFC's pool number 6. We also want the transition to bundler 2 to be as seamless as possible. So if you would like to beta test bundler 2, we really would appreciate it. People testing beta versions of bundler help us find scenarios that we may not have considered when making new versions or when making new features or modifying existing behavior. One thing you may not know about bundler is that nearly everyone in the room here has most of the code that's going to be in bundler 2. Bundler has feature flags using the config system to enable and disable particular functionality. And so we have feature flags that enable specific functionality, such as like the specific platform. So the bundler resolving your specific platform with the libv8 gem that I showed you. That's that feature flag. Auto config jobs, so that's like automatically setting the number of CPU, so the number of threads that bundler can use to install your gems in. Error on standard error is printing bundler errors to the standard error instead of standard out. And so in bundler 2, basically what's going to happen is that all these feature flags are just going to be set to true, and that's pretty much it. That's all the changelog is going to be. And so you can enable feature flags using config. You just have to set it to true. If you don't want to deal with feature flags, that's perfectly fine. I instead encourage you to wait for the core team to release a 2.0 preview release onto rubygems.org. When it does come out, you can install it with gem install with a --pre flag. That's not out at the moment, but wait for us to make an announcement. One very important thing to note is that bundler 2 is not backwards compatible with bundle 1. And so once you switch over to bundler 2, bundler 1, so once you bundle install with bundle 2, you will no longer be able to bundle install with bundler 1. So you have to be careful with that, and I encourage you to kind of coordinate with your team to make that transition over, or else you're going to have people that won't be able to bundle install, and you're going to have a bad time. So to finish off this presentation, I just want to mention some details that the core team will be making and aiming for in the future. So we're going to be looking into making major releases more often. We're looking into having something that's similar to the Ruby release schedule, so major release at the end of the year. This will allow us to drop more versions of Ruby that are not supported anymore, and also make major changes that we haven't been able to for a very long time. And if you saw Shibata-san's talk about the gemification of Ruby's standard library, you may have also heard that bundler is now going to be shipping in Ruby starting with 2.5, which we're pretty happy about. It introduces some interesting challenges for the bundler team, but the advantage of everyone getting bundler for free with Ruby is a really great advantage for us. If you would like to get in contact with me, you can find me on Twitter at 0xcolby, or on GitHub at Colby-Swandale. Bundler also has a Slack channel that anyone is more than welcome to join. You can visit slack.bundler.io, where you can visit and receive an invite for our Slack channel. We have a dedicated bundler channel, but you can also find the Ruby Gems and the rubygems.org channels there as well. And you're more than welcome to come along and say hi, or if you have any questions or any problems. But if you do have any problems, I do encourage you to raise an issue on GitHub. Bundler has extensive documentation available, which you can find at bundler.io. If you're interested in checking out the Bundler project, You can find us up on GitHub at github.com/bundler/bundler. If you have any questions about contributing to the project, we probably have one of the best sets of documentation available, I think, that explains how to get started. It will answer questions like how to set up your Ruby environment, ways you can help contribute to the project. And the Bundler core team also welcomes any contribution from anyone, regardless of experience or who you are. We have a code of conduct available on the Bundler project, which we really strictly follow. And if you need any help, we're more than happy to lend a hand. If you don't wish to commit any changes to Bundler, another way you can help the Bundler project is help fund development through Ruby Together, which is the shirt I'm wearing here as well. It helps fund people that are working on Ruby Gems, Bundler, and rubygems.org. And it's a non-for-profit that was set up by Andre Arco, and you can find more information at rubytogether.org. So, arigatou gozaimasu. Questions?
Hi.
Hi.
You may have mentioned this, and if so, I apologize for spacing out. But I saw that in some of the slides you use the bundler command, and others you use bundle.
They're aliases. That's me being lazy.
I see.
Bundle is the actual command. Bundler is an alias of bundle.
Is the alias installed automatically or something, or is that just in your personal setup?
It's really personal preference, and I just whatever I happen to be typing at the time. It doesn't really matter. You can use either one.
Okay. And also, you said that for the Ruby platform, any platform that can run Ruby, you can specify Ruby and that'll work?
It's the default in Ruby Gems. So it's a required field. So the platform is a required field in any gem specification. So any gem, you need it. But by default, it's set to the Ruby platform, which means it can run on any platform. Yeah,
I'm aware of that. But for JRuby, you need to specify Java there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Unless the gems you're using don't require any special gems, I suppose. Yeah, because...
Yeah, so any gems you depend on will need to specify the platform as well.
Right, but if they don't need any special Java stuff in the gems, I mean, you can run a gem file that's intended for MRI Ruby in JRuby as long as there's no conflict there with the incompatibility there with the gems, right?
Yeah. Bundler already does a lot of things to kind of help make it so you can bundle install on MRI or JRuby, pretty seamless. But this just takes it even further with the platform changes that are being introduced.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you tell me which version of Bundler is going to be bundled with the Ruby 2.5? Because the Ruby is going to be released every year, and also you are going to have released every year. So I wanted to know, which version is going to be.
It will
bundled.
most likely be bundled too.
Okay, but now we install the Ruby 2.5 beta. Which version of Bundler is available?
It'll be 1.15 if it's been shipped. I'll have to talk to Shibata-san with what version he's been shipped. So with what version he's shipping with the pre-release of Ruby 2.5. I'm not particularly sure. But Bundler 2 is, we're pretty close to releasing it. We're just doing some internal testing at the moment, and then we'll do a pre-release probably in the next week or so. And then we will nearly guarantee, actually no, that's not something I should say, sorry. It will most likely be Bundler 2 that will ship with Ruby 2.5.
And one more question, so there was some discussion about changing the gem file, starting with the uppercase. It's going to change the gems.rb, but I don't know the background of these changes.
You may have heard some discussion around the changing of the gem file. Nothing's really been changing. So nothing is really changing. A bit of background for those who don't know. Bundler supports two gem files. One is called the gem file with a capital G. The other one is called gems.rb. And the corresponding lock file is gemfile.lock and gems.locked. there's several reasons why that was done, that was proposed like a few years ago that eventually did get implemented. You can actually use both right now if you really want. All that's changing in Bundler 2 is just the preference. So if you for some reason have a gem file and a gems.rb in the same folder, Bundler will prefer gems.rb over gem file. We're not removing the gemfile.lock, the gem file or the gemfile.lock. It's not going anywhere. We have no plans to remove it right now. We're just changing the order in which it prefers it. So you don't have to do anything with the gemfile or the gemfile.lock for Bundler 2.
So here the preference means we're gonna get the deprecation warning.
No deprecation. It's not even deprecated. Nothing's happening with it.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Thank you for the talk. So it's if you start using Bundler 2, everybody has to start using Bundler 2.
Yes. Yep.
Will Bundler 2 understand Bundler 1 lock files?
Yes, but it won't work the other way around.
Okay, so on Heroku, which I might care about, I can make Bundler 2 like the version of Bundler, and it's not gonna like mess up everybody else who's not upgraded and hasn't updated their Ruby app for like 5 years.
Heroku might be an interesting problem because Heroku has a fixed version of Bundler, which I don't think you can actually upgrade if you push to it, which I think...
I maintain the Ruby build back.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, basically what's going to happen is that when you push to Heroku, Heroku will install, if you're using Bundler 2, the gem file and the gemfile.lock in, and while doing that, it's going to update the gemfile.lock because there's some new changes that are going to come in. So yeah, there might be something to watch out for.
Oh yeah, actually, and we also do it in deployment mode, so it won't let you do that.
Yeah, if you do use deployment mode, it won't update the gemfile.lock.
Okay.
About 5 minutes left, so do you have any questions?
Well, it's not a question, but I just checked the current version of Ruby 2.5 and trunk. At least in my version here, it says Bundler 1.15.4.
Yep, so that's the most current release of Bundler. And if Shibata-san's going to be, if there is going to be a pre-release soon, then it will be 1.15. But we're hoping to release Bundler 2 before 2.5 release of Ruby.
Do you have any questions?
I'd be more than happy to come see me after the talk as well if you have any questions about Bundler. So don't be afraid to approach me afterwards.
If you don't have a question, I want to ask a question.
Sure.
Oh, thank you. I think it is difficult. I think it is very reasonable not to support earlier version of Ruby Bundler 2.
Mm-hmm.
But is there any difficulty with making such decision with Bundler developers?
We haven't come across a huge amount of pushback with us dropping versions of Ruby support, so dropping support for Ruby versions. Bundler 1 is still going to be around, and if we really need to, we can still patch 1.0. So we can still patch Bundler 1 if we need to, which will still support 1.8 up until now, pretty much. But for Bundler 2, the cost is that we're going to be dropping Ruby support because the Bundler code is it's pretty messy at the moment because it has to support a lot of quirks that have been coming into Ruby over time. So as a core maintainer, we really would like to get rid of that, because writing the quoted hash rockets is something I would really like to get rid of.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. すみません Mr. Colby Swandale. Thank
ありがとう
you.
ございます。